Welcome to another episode of Upcycled Industry with an online interview with Gilles Halotel. Pleasure to have you here, Gilles. Who are you?
Yes, thanks, Lida. Who I am, so I'm Gilles Halotel, so I'm Global Head of Procurement Innovation working for Givaudan, the world leader of the flavor and fragrance industry, now also operating in active beauty and natural ingredients. I'm based in Vernier, next to Geneva, Switzerland, and I'm French.
Okay, very nice. So we're both in Switzerland. That's nice. So hello to the other side. Now, Givaudan, you said, what is Givaudan doing with upcycling? What is your connection to it?
So our connection is very simple, Linda. I think when we step back and we look at why we do what we do at Givaudan, and again, we are creating flavors and active ingredients for the beauty side and ingredients for the food industry, being texturizer and colors. Nature is one of our first supplier. I think nature is good at doing fantastic flavors or fragrances, and obviously our role has always been to extract the nature. And if we are a love for nature, we want to exhaust the nature in the best we could, not destroy it. And upcycling makes a lot of sense because when you are extracting and you're creating a mainstream, your leftover are side stream. So if there is anything you could be doing out of the side stream, we have a duty as a responsible company to look at that, to check if we would be able to transform those into something else that will be even more valuable, opposed than to just trash it into the bin. So that's why upcycling makes a lot of sense for what we do and why we do, and it's feeding as well our sense of purpose as a company, which is our love for nature.
Mm-hmm. Now, you as a head of procurement, what is your connection to this topic?
Well, I guess it's the connection is twofold. Firstly, is that because in procurement we are managing a lot of supplier, we also need to have access to eventually what our supplier does and could offer in terms of side streams that could be valorized further. But I think more importantly, it was also my appetite for the subject within Givaudan, and I think when we decided to look at that cross-functionally and cross-divisionally within Givaudan, so making sure that we do have an operating framework allowing us to look at those opportunities and to help each division to be working together. I think I propose myself, let's say, to manage this working group, and because I guess there is a lot of flourage to be done, and our suppliers are contributing quite a lot into the making of the next generation of ingredients that would be using side stream as an alternative source of feedstock.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very interesting that you mentioned the supply chains now. So getting access to material as side streams is maybe becoming an even more important topic in the future. Do you see it that way as well, or how are you handling this topic?
I think it's more than important. It's critical. I think if we are thinking about our duties as a company, is to make sure that from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, we are offering the right flavor, the right fragrance. Going into let's say a soap, a detergent, air freshener, or food by any type of processed food. So the risk would be very much that we are generating ingredient out of a side stream, and suddenly the side stream is not there anymore. So what are we going to be doing with our ingredients? So we won't be able to offer it any longer, and therefore we may not be able to offer the flavor or the fragrance or the active ingredients, which is derived from that side stream. So that's why for us it's very important and critical whenever we would be selecting, or whenever we are selecting, because we are already operating in that field, to make sure that we are having a feedstock which is going to be sustainable in size, in quality, even if we are accepting variability in the quality per se, but very much sizable and consistent year on year. And the risk as well is that because of the success of such material eventually in the market, the side stream becomes a mainstream, and therefore we need to find another way to get the mainstream reorganized or rearranged, because it may become the size.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that's why it's important for us to balance all of that. And whenever we take the decision to industrialize the side stream, to really wait all of that to make sure that we are having the diligence and the due diligence in everything we do.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about industrializing the side stream, you certainly talk about amounts and everything, but how about logistics or topics like regionality, globalization, since you are operating all across the globe, and I think especially for you, also resources from very exotic areas are extremely important. So if you look at it for side streams, how are you handling these very complex topics?
So there are, Linda. I think it's a very good question. I think what we are trying to do, it's great to be able to remanufacture side streams, and but I think it shouldn't come at the expense of destroying something else. It's shifting material from Latin America to be industrialized in China to be reused in Europe doesn't make any sense at all. It's I think from a carbon viewpoint and from a sustainability viewpoint, it's a nonsense. So I think what we are carefully looking at is whenever we start a program, can we industrialize the material closer to the place where the side stream has been generated?
Yes.
Don't we have the technology in the country allowing us eventually to do the second transformation or the retransformation of the side stream into something else, the closest from where the side stream has been generated? And it may come with also transferring knowledge or technologies or equipment at the supplier where the side stream is available to do that transformation, avoiding us to ship material all around the world with all the complexity it could occur, because all industries, us the first, because we are also generating side stream. So we were doing it firstly for the mainstream, for the first reason why you're, let's say, operating that material. Leftover were not necessarily considered in the equation from day one. So even if today we are now considering the leftover in the equation from day one with the idea that we are generating no waste by design, but there is still a lot of supply chain not set up for that. Therefore, we are very much checking how can we processed a number of material, not necessarily with the idea that we are generating no waste by design, but also considering that the leftover has a value, and therefore we need to identify that value and the processes and the supply chain and all the environment allowing us to have access that material at the no pain as possible. It's always a gain of pain, risk, and challenge, but at the lowest pain as possible, because if this is too painful, there is no problem. It's too complicated to get industrialized. I think and that's a big challenge, because it's if I take a number of processing, they are wet, they can mold rapidly, and we can be destroying the side stream just because we are having the right way to pack it or the right way to transport it, and so on and so forth. So I think, make it very short, the closest we can process it from the place where it has been generated, the better.
No, I fully agree, and important topic from an ecological and economical point of view, definitely. But maybe also interesting now that you explained all of these complexity around it. You have faced it. You at Givaudan, you have products that are upcycled. Can you maybe introduce one or two of them and let us know on how you overcame these challenges?
I think, yeah, I think if you have been a little bit curious, we just complete a liquiding campaign around the 10 or 11 ingredient that has been done through a upcycling solution in the context of beauty, active beauty, so active ingredient for the beauty, to make people beautiful, is put in this way. So I think if I'm taking an example, and which is maybe really relevant to why we are really much thinking no waste by design at Givaudan, which is a vetiver supply chain. So we are extracting roots. From the roots, we are creating wonderful fragrance. But from the leftover of the roots of the process, so with the roots, it happened that they were containing some actives that were of interest for the beauty and the active beauty at creating the next generation of whitening and anti-wrinkle, let's say, cream. So I think what we have done is firstly identify, and that's always a challenge. What is it the side stream could do? You know, before starting industrializing it, you really have to understand that the side stream it has a value, but what the value is very much about if you can't make an analytical footprint of it, or if you can really dig into the characterization of the material. So in the context of the vetiver, I think we knew we were having something here, let's say a gem to beautify in a way, and what we have done is just to collect the material from the extraction, to dry it, and to ship it to Europe, where the material is further processed. But we are now thinking if we could reprocess it directly on site, because it's also sharing as well value back to the communities. Because vetiver is grown in a country like Haiti, which is not the richest country in the world. So if we could, in a way, through the backward industrialization of the material, we give back a bit more to the community. I think besides the right storytelling, it's also making sense from a company standpoint.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We are acting as a force for good. So I think it's, but you're definitely right. The supply chain is probably, besides the characterization of the material, the understanding what you could do out of that, the biggest challenge to overcome.
Now, I think the characterization is very interesting to discuss again, but I want to come back to the supply chain quickly. Now, the vetiver is a very nice example of an internal circle that you kind of created. So you reused one of your own side streams. Sometimes also external side streams might be interesting, and then it's a lot about ecosystems, working in innovation ecosystems, so on. Have you also experienced such an example?
Yeah, we did, and I think we do a few examples where indeed we it's not our side stream we are further valorizing, but we are getting access side stream coming from a supply chain or from a suppliers. Like I said, you know, I think the value for me being in procurement is that I could have had that conversation with our vendors around the globe and explaining a little bit the objective we are setting to ourselves with that program. And if any of those would be having something of interest, like I said, sizable, sustainable, quantifiable, year on year available, obviously there is probably a way for Givaudan to look at it, to characterize the material if the material has not been yet characterized, and ask yourself, what is it we could do differently out of that side stream? Compared to what is usually meant for, which is either being back to the field or being burned to drive energy, to get energy. So yes, we had that experiences and collaborating with our vendors at collecting their side stream. Some of our vendors has been specifically isolating those side stream from their supply chain to give us access to it. Once we identify that we had a business case. And everything we do at the end of the day need to be viable, scalable, and desirable. It's nothing different than any other innovative activity. So as soon as we are having a business case, and it's engaging the conversation and how to isolate, how to procure, where to get it. And it's also a push and a pull. So we know what we need and we get into the market to try to look for it. Or we are having spontaneously supplier offering us their solutions. A company like yours, Rethink Resource, or a few other in the ecosystem, who are knowing that we are in that mood, in that program, in that objectives, coming to us and saying, "Oh, I do have that available. Is it something of interest for you?"
Yeah. Is that something that is actually has changed? As you said, that you're in this mood. Is that something that your suppliers start to realize, and also more and more coming towards you for this?
Yeah, I think we clearly have seen a shift. I think over the past 2 3 years. I think we started that program a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, I guess. But we are really in the acceleration since about 2 years and a half, and we clearly saw a shift, both at our customers and suppliers. It's quite interesting because of what we do, we're also in touch with a lot of customers around the world. We're also having leftover from their operation. And they also are asking us, is there anything we could be doing together eventually to further valorize my side streams? Because I don't necessarily know what to do with that, but maybe Givaudan, you will know what is it you can do out of that. Because I think for us, the value we see, or the value I really building on in the context of Givaudan, is that we are not in only one, let's say, vertical. We are having multiple verticals, and the upcycling is a very horizontal program. So therefore, we can really much feed one or the other verticals, and usually the side stream of our one vertical is not for that vertical, it's for another vertical in the organization. So for us, having these four activities, the flavors, the fragrance, the activity, and the natural ingredients, is allowing us to have that shift of activities between the different verticals in a way, in order to have that holistic understanding about what an ingredient can do, or what an upcycling, a feedstock for upcycling could do. And a lot of our customers are looking into us for that as well, because I think if you're in the food business, you're not necessarily having access to the cosmetic business, right? Yes. And they look at us saying, okay, I do have that, so maybe out of my apricot kernel, there is something you can do out of that, because for me, in the food industry, what are you going to do with that? There is not much you can do. But if you milled it, if you extract it, maybe there is an oil that you could be using in the context of cosmetic. And guess what? We did that. We have an apricot oil, which is currently used as a sourcing ingredient for the cosmetic industry. So I think having that capacity to be across four activity, or say four verticals, our supplier came to us and there is maybe something you can do out of that, and they see that as a value to generate further money out of it. And there is customer coming to us and saying, okay, I do have that, as I want to act as a force for good, but I don't know what to do with that. Can you help me?
Yeah, I think Givaudan is really an industry leader in that sense. Absolutely. Now, you just mentioned that you need to identify then, where's the value, and also if suppliers or customers are coming towards us, you need to see where the value can be. We just talked about it before. I think it's a very crucial topic in the field of upcycling, and you as Givaudan can maybe really play a key role in this. So how are you identifying the value? Where do you detect it?
So I think there is there is two things we are currently doing. There is firstly, and I think maybe I just step back. I think we're creating an internal team within Givaudan, having the mandate in their objective to look at upcycling as a force for good. And I think it's because everything boils down to the resource available, right? So if that comes on top, or it's going to be a nice to do. Here, we're really making it not a mandatory activities, but we have really created a working group having the mandate, reporting to the joint innovation group, reporting to the board of innovation committee, making sure that there is activities in the pipeline of activities related to that. And we also put, by the way, financial targets to that, because what is not measured is not done. Okay, so now when we do have access to feedstock, clearly the characterization matters, because like I said, it should be an alternative source of feedstock eventually. And therefore, if you don't exactly understand what that feedstock is about, it's going to be extremely complicated to imagine what that feedstock can do. Okay? So characterization, doing all the analysis you could think of in order to really understand what that material is about, is very critical. And then it's for the innovation community, for the scientist, for the chemist, to really look at that and say, wow, this material is full of fatty acid. And because I know it's full of fatty acid, if I'm applying technology ABC, I can turn it into something else. Okay. But I think there is another dimension we're also very much looking at, is that you don't necessarily need to do past transformation of a side stream. Some side stream are good as is. It just thinking differently in the way you're going to be deploying it into your creation palette. And that's something it's the easiest move, let's put it this way, because it's a clear plug and play. But that is requiring, from a creative standpoint, a different approach. And in our working group right now, we do have perfumer and flavorist who are also having, and we are smelling and testing the material we are receiving and challenging the current palette we have and double checking if those ingredients as is, without necessarily having huge additional transformation, could be used as is in the creation of flavors or in the creation of fragrance without any transformation. And that could be a way to accelerate and ingraining even further such ingredient in the creative palette. Because once you need to transform, it's all about business case. It's all about cost to transform, cost of transformation. So when you take it as is, it's an ingredient like any others. It just happen to come from a different source.
Absolutely. Like we call it direct use.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's definitely one of the, how to say, most convenient ways to do it, but maybe also the ones to bring upcycling further very fast. Do you have an example of such a direct use?
Yeah. I think we are exhausting garlic in one of the factory in Chicago. Where you are receiving garlic, the vegetables as is, and we are extracting the oil in order to make it further seasoning for the snack industry, and the leftover was still full of taste and smell. So we just mill it, dry it, and we use it back in the seasoning creation as well. So we do have the total, let's say, garlic element, if I may say, in the creation of seasoning now for the American market.
Very nice example. Yeah, totally. So maybe that brings us back also to the topic that we touched in the very beginning about the availability of side stream and also the amounts of side streams. So such a direct use, as you just mentioned now, where you have a leftover that you can reuse directly, but it's a stream that you constantly have and you know it's coming in and it will be for a long time. But how are you handling, I mean, scarce resources or rare resources is something that you're used to as a company, I guess. Is that something you treat similarly in upcycling, or?
Yeah, I think we, no matter what the origin of the material in Givaudan, no matter if it's coming from a mainstream or a side stream, it doesn't really matter. I think we have to apply the same principle: risk management and business continuity plan. So for sure, and for certain material, the risk is too high, or the business continuity plan cannot be, let's say, developed in a way that we will be protecting our customers and consumers by getting access to the solution we have. Because the impact of not us being able to supply has a direct impact to consumer not getting access to eventually their material or the materials they love at the supermarket. So we are applying the same principle. Being upcycling or not is the same principle. A material that enters the portfolio must have its risk assessment being done and having eventually a business continuity plan in place, which may be limited for the type of side stream we are looking at. That was a fancy side stream available in a very unique place in the world. Could be a great storytelling, but may not be something we would be looking at because the risk is too high. And because there is no way we could have a business continuity plan. And therefore, I don't think our customers or end consumers, or let's say our customer will, despite maybe loving the story, may not be accepting much. And it's a shame, but it's again, we look at that in the lens of Givaudan, of what we are, who we are, where we are operating, the customer we are looking at, and the consumer we are targeting. So, and there is probably a way for those materials to find another route in the B2C, eventually, without us eventually playing in that game. I think we are too big to be, unfortunately, to look at such isolated opportunities in the fancy world.
Yeah, I can understand totally. But it is an interesting challenge to also look into future business models. I think it will change, I assume.
Sure, I think Linda, I think that's why I think it's that maybe your role, the IT, and to continue thinking how to further develop additional business model, and eventually looking at such opportunity more in the context of B2C, or having, let's say, company having that capacity to be able to further valorize those feedstock in a way. I think the challenge will always be it takes time, and it takes a lot of energy and resources to characterize a product. So and if you are deploying those resources for a very small business case, where is your return of investment? So it's always balancing how much does it cost to do it versus the result I'm going to get and the value I'm going to be generating of the effort I do. So that's why for us, Givaudan, we're looking at the resource we have to engage, and the commercialization plan we usually have as a global company operating in 128 countries. I think it's and having global customers, and so we cannot take the opportunity to look at the niche.
Yes.
And for the company, we will be looking at those niche. They may not be having the technical resources or the technical capabilities or the operating capacities in order to transform those materials. So it's a bit of a chicken and eggs.
Yes.
And I'm sure that tomorrow we will have companies that will be offering as a service the capacity to characterize a material, to get access to those niche feedstock, to valorize them further through their know-how and the characterization, and identify customer that would be willing to have a one-time off eventually, a limited time offering.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree.
So this is not what our business model, unfortunately, as you know.
Yeah, but I mean, you are working with upcycling in the field you can, and you are doing it. You have products in your portfolio. May I ask, how are they perceived by your customers? Are those products, the upcycling products you have, are they competitive to the others that you have? Are they used a lot, asked for?
I think yes, they are. I think we are again. It's all about the business case. So it's so whenever we are promoting or commercializing an ingredient, we need to make sure that firstly that ingredient is creating value from the total portfolio of whatever we do. Then if it's coming from upcycling, this is not the question. I think it's to me. Is an ingredient make sense to be part of a portfolio? Yes, no. If it's coming with an upcycling approach, let's say side stream valorization, even better, because it's just showing that we have been acting as a force for good, and we have been living our sense of purpose. So does it perform? Yes, they do. I think it's and how is it perceived by our customers? I think quite interesting. We are having customers who are very much into the mood of branding such ingredients, because it's contributing to the value creation of their brand. And we do have others who say, I care less, it's your call, it's not my call. At the end of the day, what I want is to have an ingredient that fits my needs. It doesn't really matter if it comes that way or that way. It's give me what I want. So do we communicate extensively of why we do it, what we do, and how we do? Interesting enough that the beauty side is into the story. The flavor side a bit less. I think it's probably not yet fully ingrained in the context of the food manufacturing, that side stream, which could be considered as waste stream, which are not, by the way, because we are not using waste, we are using side stream. It's it's a bit semantic here, but it makes an importance. They are not necessarily looking at that too much, at least for the customer base we are looking for. Again, it's a question of customer base. I think Nestlé, the Danone, the Unilever are all looking into that, and they may going into more into that in the future, because they also look at that as a force for good for their own sustainability agenda, or their own let's say objective in terms of ways of operations. But today it's very shy, let's put it this way. It's where we see the most expression requirement and needs and excitement and interest is clearly the beauty side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's interesting because we talked about storytelling before, that there's definitely a value also from a storytelling point of view. What you now say is that you do not leverage on the storytelling all the time. So do you also propose customers to use the upcycled products you have in your portfolio, even though they're not using the storytelling?
Yeah, I think we are not necessarily saying that they are from upcycling. I think it's whenever there is a need to say, we say, but sometimes there is not necessarily a need to say it, I think. And but I think it's also for our own internal, let's say, pride at saying that we, because of our sense of purpose, because our love for nature, we have done within Givaudan everything we could to get the best of what the nature has to offer. It's we don't necessarily do it for customers. We also do it for us first. I think it's and then if a customer is very much willing to build on our story, why not? But we don't do it for our customers. We do it because we believe it's right to do it for as a responsible company, and we believe that it makes sense for us first.
That is something to be proud of, definitely. Yeah. I agree. Totally. Now, as you say, pride, I think also you as a person, you have a very strong fascination or also excitement for this topic, I think. How is it within Givaudan also? Do you find a lot of people that you can motivate to work within this area and to also consider upcycling as a field to look into within their jobs?
Yeah, I think it's definitively something we have been arguing, or not necessarily arguing, but really advocating a lot within the organization. I think, and really having that thinking of no waste by design, and side stream valorization are contributing quite a lot at making sure that we are ingraining this no waste by design thinking. And like I said, we formed this working group. We have a team. We have a steering committee. We are having a governance in place. We are directly reporting to the Board of Innovation Committee. It's one of the identified cross-divisional pillars where innovation should happen. So we make a little bit of internal noise, let's put it in this way, to position that program within Givaudan. And now I'm pleased to report that Active Beauty, as an example, when they are looking at extracting botanicals, side stream should be their first step in the making. It not necessarily happen all the time, every time, because as I said, you may not be having the side stream available in the quantity or in the quality or in the source you look for, but they really look at upcycling to be a key differentiating factor for their botanical extractions. I think in the context of the flavor division, I know there is a group of scientists who are very keen to really explore what the side stream valorization can do, and therefore they look at that as an alternative feedstock. So and it's all about advocating this mindset shift. It takes time because, like I said, it's an extra step compared to mainstream. And it's requiring a little bit more thinking of what is it you could be doing out of something that's meant for why you look it for, where you are initially looking for. So it's requiring an extra step, and not everyone is willing to do that extra step. Everyone likes to be in their comfort zone. You look for a material, you go to the mainstream. It's easy. It's clean. It's clear. It's fine. Here, if you are in upcycling, you need to say, okay, what is it I should be doing and where else I could get it, and therefore I require a bit of effort to get it done. But I'm very pleased to report that with Givaudan, not everyone everywhere would be very arrogant at saying that we have been able to transform Givaudan totally in the upcycling thinking. But there is more and more people looking into that. There is more and more people thinking about it. We are having more and more success stories, and success stories are calling other success stories. We do have the young generation, which very much keen as well at exploring that further, because they're also more maybe nature cautious and conscious about how the world is evolving, and therefore they want to valorize further what are the leftovers. So there is a momentum, and is it where it is Could it be better, Linda? Yes, always. But I think it's already identified to be one key pillar, since that's already a big achievement for us. And we talk about it.
Yeah,
That's why we are here today, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. No, and it's something you should talk about. I mean, it is very important. It is very interesting, and also very, or how to say, a key element for future generations, as you. And I think it's a really a key differentiator for you as a company as well. Is there maybe something you can as you said, like producing in this industrial scale with upcycling, creating this creativity within the team, motivation and everything. There are so many obstacles but there are so many opportunities as well. Is there maybe something you can advise the industry on, what's key to implement, what is important to do if you want to kind of change your company, also creating the shift of mind, taking upcycling as a very serious topic?
I think it's like I keep on saying, when there is a will, there is a way, and like a lot of programs, and I guess precisely or more precisely related to the size of the company in which I'm operating today, if there is not clear commitment, if there is no clear engagement, and it's not in the agenda, you can try to do whatever you want, but you're going to always be limited by the resource
Yes.
you can access in order to achieve the ambition you have. So I think maybe for us, it has been very much that saying, okay, is it not an agenda for Givaudan? I think if it is an agenda, we need to allocate resources to make it to happen. And like I said, create the success stories, engaging people, make it clear in the agenda of all the objective of the team concerned, make it clearly in the agenda from a strategic viewpoint, and maybe not spending a lot of, let's say, hours and hours of talking about it, but making sure that at least it's in the agenda of our executive committee. It's known by the different leadership team, because that is allowing access to resource. And for us, I have the chance to directly to be part of a leadership team, so to be part of the procurement leadership team. So in a way, I already having access to the executive committee, and my boss is also the head of sustainability, is also sponsoring the program, and we do have our CEO Gilles Halotel, who is very in the mood as well, who loves the subject. I think he's always keep challenging us and saying, but do you focus on the right bets? Do you have the big result you're looking at? Do you have enough resources in order to make it? Do you allocate enough time or funding eventually to do what you are supposed to do? So I think if it doesn't come from the top, it's very complicated. I think in the way of, in large organization, because like I said, for us, upcycling is not the main core of everything we have to do. I think at the end of the day, what matters to us is to create the right flavors, or the right fragrance, or the right beauty element, or the right natural ingredients. So if it's coming from a mainstream, fine. If it's coming from a side stream, fine. And there is also a way to protect the nature as well through the mainstream. So it's so that's why it's very important to make it in the agenda. It's and having a commitment and a resource and organization, and do a little bit of buzz internally as well, using all the internal communication channel. And I think the good news for Givaudan, because of our sustainability program, and because of our love for nature, and because of our sense of purpose, which is about creating for love, for happier and better lives. I think upcycling is a contributor to our purpose, and it fits very well our sense of purpose. And it has been easy for us, for me, and for the group to advocate the level of resources we have to have in order to spend time at identifying what is it we should do, how we could do it, where we could get access to the feedstocks, the characterization, the level of analytical resource we have to have, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's we are also measured by numbers, so we need as well to contribute to the business. As simple as that. That's why we also set financial targets to this program, because we want to be not only in the top of the people, but as well in the numbers, and at the time saying, okay, upcycling as a force for good has been contributed for X million dollars of additional sales for Givaudan.
Super. I mean, I think that it's a very crucial topic that you mentioned, is that resources need to be allocated. It doesn't happen by itself. It needs to be driven by someone. And I think you are a great example of driving such a program. I think you as a person who's really behind this, and Givaudan as a company. So I think that was a very, very nice, ending to our interview, summarizing again on what is necessary, what it can help and bring, and also, that it hopefully will be part of their business models as well, other companies.
I think, yeah, and there is being, and that's always a challenge, at the end of the day, if everyone is looking at the same feedstock, it could be very much be a challenge. So I think that's why I really not urging everyone to be mindful of why we're doing it, but it has to make sense. And because if not, we will be creating another problem, which is when the side stream becomes the mainstream. And that is generating another problem. So that's why we need to look at that in a very holistic way. And like I said, for us, it's great doing upcycling, and we love doing it, and we obviously continue doing that. But if we can achieve no waste by design, you solve the upcycling problem forever.
Well, let's hope that we will continue working towards the no waste by design as a joint force, all the industry, with a holistic mindset, definitely, and see what the future brings, and maybe we can reconnect and see what happens.
It's my pleasure, Linda.
Thank you very much, Gilles.
Pleasure, Linda.